All right. Morning, Doug. Today we're going to do some questions from viewers. Lots of good ones this time. So let's see. Let me hop into the top here. You've answered this before to some degree, but do you see a hot war with U.S. and China coming in the near future?
Well, as Einstein famously said, after hydrogen, the most common thing in the universe is stupidity. So yeah, I think that war is a constant of human existence. And sometimes, frankly, it's the only way you can solve things, by physical violence, because of the way people are wired. I mean, it's unfortunate. I hate to say something like that. But especially when we're dealing with the kind of people that go to work for governments and run governments. I mean, they're the worst and most sociopathic type of person that are inevitably drawn to government. So I said what I said because it's an acknowledgement of an unfortunate reality. But they see it as often the second step after some blah blah. So
The second step after some blah blah.
yeah, exactly. So do I think there's going to be a war between the U.S. and China? Well, what's going to set it off? There are a number of things that could set it off. I mean, it could be the U.S. trying to maintain the regime in Taiwan, which is vastly better than the one in Beijing, obviously, but it's none of our business, quite frankly. So, once again, the U.S. might get involved in a local dispute. And maybe the armaments industry will think, hey, this is a good idea. We'll be able to sell more junk to the Taiwanese and to the U.S. military. So they'll do it for that reason. Maybe it's because the political situation in the U.S. gets so bad that they need to focus people's attention on a foreign enemy. China's a good candidate for that. So, yeah, I expect a war. The question is the size of the war. Is it going to be World War III, which will be a cyber war bringing down the entire world's industry? Because everything's run on computers. Absolutely everything's run on computers, from the electricity grid to the banking system to just everything.
Well, you have to imagine if it gets to that extent where it really is like that level of war, it wouldn't even stop with, with cyber attacks or anything like that. I mean, why wouldn't it go nuclear fast? Because its consequences of that level of cyber war are so massive.
It might, but rather than going nuclear, more likely it'll go biological, because it's as this recent COVID hysteria has proven. Biological war can work on a psychological level, and especially when you're dealing with a genetically different population like the Chinese, or the Chinese with Westerners. Hey, it's perfect. It's better than neutron bombs, which destroy people but don't destroy very much of the infrastructure. So yeah, I'd say the chances of some type of a conflict between the U.S. and China are very, very high. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Well, this relates to a question that we have coming up later, and I told you about this one when it came in first a couple weeks ago. It's from a guy who works for a company that collects DNA of the dead, collects and stores DNA of the dead. And I don't know if you remember our conversation about this guy, but I didn't even know this was a thing. But apparently, when you die, you're no longer a person, so your remains are essentially nobody's property, and essentially the funeral home sells to these companies, DNA samples, which go into a larger database. And his question was, do you think that at some point that database of DNA could be used against us in some way?
Yeah, everything can be used against you, information-wise. I mean, look, when I shed this mortal coil, I haven't thought about it very much, but how do I want my remains disposed of?
A Viking ship, a Viking pyre.
I like that in theory. I do like that that image, but I'm not sure I believe in funerals or funeral homes. Not that I want to damage the income statements or balance sheets of any people in that business, but I don't. I mean, what's the point? You're dead. I've got a lot of land here. Maybe you should just be buried there. Mm-hmm. I like the Viking ship idea, or a funeral pyre.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily have to be on a Viking ship.
It's better if it is, let's be honest.
It is better, yeah, no question. Including the arrow launched at it.
Exactly.
The whole thing. Yeah, I kind of like that.
Okay. Let's see. We've had especially one individual who's been asking tons of questions about Russia. This person, if he's not a Putin agent directly, he's definitely a fanboy at least. And he's like, anyway, so he asks, what your impression of Russia is. He says, I don't see Russia going along with the World Economic Forum stuff in the Great Reset, even though they do have an authoritarian government. I'm curious what you think about it and if it's a good place for a second passport or a place to hedge your bets.
Well, in relative terms, I guess you're going to have to count me as a fanboy of Putin and Russia at this point, because Russia is, for all the numerous faults, there's so many of its government and the society and the whole thing. They're one of the least PC countries in the world. Yep. They're not going along with all the things that are destroying the West, or most of the things that are destroying the West. Russia's more interesting now than it's been just about ever. I mean, I'm not opposed to being friendly with Russians or spending time in Russia. However, I have spent a lot of time in Russia, in the old Soviet Union, and I can't think of any place in Russia that would be suitable to live in other than Moscow and St. Petersburg. It's a third world country with white people, quite frankly. So, except for those two places. Do you want a Russian passport? The value of a passport hinges on the amount of visa-free travel it allows you. And, Russia doesn't rank really high that way. So, it's interesting country, but would I want to live there? Listen, a few years ago, and I probably mentioned this even here on the blog, I said to my wife, listen, why don't we, it's time to do something different. And why don't we move to the Congo, Kinshasa, let's say, for 6 months and live there, and it would be fascinating. And at the end of 6 months, I expect I'd know everybody worth knowing in the Congo. Fascinating. I'd love to do that. And then we'll go to Moscow, and we'll live there for 6 months. And I'd expect the same thing will happen. It'll be a barrel of monkeys. Well, she didn't like the idea too much. Certainly not the Congo, because she's a South African. and let's admit it, the Congo,
too far.
Yeah, and the Congo admittedly is a shithole, but an interesting shithole. And Russia, well, since she speaks Russian also, if I said St. Petersburg instead of Moscow, she might have gone for it. Anyway, at this point, I still think those would be two great places to go to broaden one's experience for a while. But hey, listen, who was it? Who's that actor that was it Depardieu that Putin gave a Russian citizenship to?
I think wasn't Steven Seagal also?
I think Seagal too. So this is the nice thing about authoritarian countries.
They just grant you status, legal
exactly.
status.
So
no corruption at all.
No. So be a buddy with the guy that runs it, and there are advantages.
Yeah. You started off saying though that one of the things that was really good about Russia was that they're not PC, and I think that seems like when I first hear that, my first instinct is, well, that seems kind of superficial, but it's actually not, because it's basically the denial of reality. Being politically correct means you're denying reality, and so the fact that Russia at least is not denying what's plain in front of them, I think probably has lots of knock-on effects. You probably see that in other things too.
Yeah, I think Russia in today's world gets an unnecessarily bad rap, and so does Putin, because it's been said, and I think it's true, there are less communists in Russia than there are in U.S. universities at this point. So, the fact that it's run by corrupt oligarchs, okay, but
Like the rest of the world.
like
Anyway.
the rest of the world, right? So,
Okay. What are the implications, in your mind, of obtaining a false vaccination record? And does this imply a lack of ability to push back against the narrative? If you aren't willing to get false documents, and or does it move a person's moral compass to do something like that?
does it move a person's moral compass? The answer to that question is no. Government ID is, first of all, I don't believe there should be any government ID, quite frankly. The world would get on just fine without it. Fabricating government ID is not a moral problem, ethical problem in any way at all.
Could be a legal problem.
It's a legal problem, potential legal problem, and it's a cost-benefit trade-off. Now, as a non-vaccinated person, my travel agenda is limited. In addition to the fact I just don't like to go to airports, and I don't like to be inspected, and I don't like to fly today with wearing a mask, all the rest of this type of thing. So it's not as bad as it might be. But still, your papers have to be in order, and I'd be perfectly happy to, I don't know if I should say this in public, because maybe the powers that be will look at my papers especially
They
quickly. They might. That's true. But no, nothing wrong with it. The question is that there's just going to be a window when this is going to work anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the big point, because there are paper documents you can get now. It's all going to be connected to a biometric, system, and a lot of places you can only even get these vaccines at government facilities, where it's very difficult for anyone to be corrupt anyway.
Yeah,
because they're being watched over by other people.
Yeah, that's right. And the computers watch over them, so it's harder than it used to be in the old days, when you just needed a crumpled yellow piece of paper with your vaccine stamp on it. And
Right.
It was nothing. For whatever they were looking for, yellow fever usually. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's fine, but you can run, but you can't hide at this point.
Does seem to be the case. So somebody asked about, Jeff Berwick has talked about in one of your a video he did, where he says that when he first met you, you asked him a series of questions, and then at the end of it, you said, "Oh, you're an ANCAP." Do you remember what those questions were? How do you suss this out of somebody to figure out?
Idle and pleasant conversation. So when I talk to people, this is why I don't go to, or I'm not invited to, I should say, to be more accurate, dinner parties in Aspen in particular, because I like to have, after talking, doing 5 minutes on the weather and the state of the roads and sports teams, I suppose, which I couldn't care less about, quite frankly, unless I have money bet on them, and I don't know enough about any of the popular sports to bet money, so rule that out. I like to talk about philosophy. It's interesting. I like to find out who this person is, what he thinks, what's made him what he, these things. But unfortunately, when you talk philosophy, there's two types of practical and applied philosophy: religion and politics. The two things you're not supposed to talk about. And so, how did I get off on that?
What would be a question you'd ask someone in those two applied philosophies, religion or
relevant to Jeff Berwick? So we were talking philosophy, and I just asked him questions that would logically proceed one from the other, trying to find out who somebody is and what he believes, and therefore what he's likely to do or likely not to do. These are important things. And, Jeff had the right answers. What questions were they in particular? Well, it would be situation driven. I mean, if we were having a steak, I might say, it's a good steak. What do you think about vegetarians? And,
Right.
You can go anywhere with this stuff. So that's the answer. But I think it's important to probe these things. And the other person might appreciate it because maybe nobody's done that, asked him important questions for years. So he'll be entertained.
Do you remember and I know you don't remember the specific conversation, but was a point where you are able to say, okay, I have enough information, this is what you are. And you kind of test it with them, like, this is what I think you are. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Well, the last time that this happened, that we were in each other's company, was when we were talking to John Perkins.
Yeah.
I didn't have high hopes, but I thought it would be interesting to talk to him.
It was interesting.
He's had kind of an interesting life within the circles that he's moved in. And I'm just sorry that I was cut off for probably 20 minutes because of a bad connection in Virginia.
I was just trying to keep it going long enough, saying, come back, until you got back on.
Yeah, I did, but we didn't have enough time to, push this as far as it should have been pushed. And just so viewers know, I wrote John an email, and friendly email. I said, I have a copy of your book, and I'd like to send you an autographed copy of one of my books, just, to be friendly and show there's no hard feelings. He didn't even write back. I just thought that, well, he wrote back to you because...
I wrote him later, again, and just to make sure it wasn't an unintentional error or oversight on his part.
Well, obviously...
And I asked him for the address to send the books, and he did not respond to that part.
Yeah, well...
He didn't.
Yeah, I don't suspect I'll be talking to John again anytime in the near future. But, I'm amused. I mean, what was the funniest thing that you pointed this out in the conversation that we had, where he said, I know a lot of college students and they don't believe any of this stuff, as if that was an argument.
Exactly. No, he goes, Doug, I am with college students all the time, and I can tell you none of them doubt global warming.
That's what it was.
Or doubt climate change. None of them. And we're both like, who does this prove anything to?
I know.
But it was proved to him.
Yeah, I know. This is the state of the world we're dealing with today.
Well, it really shows kind of, sorry, John, if you're watching, kind of fascist thinking, because the fascists, one of the things they believe is if you just believed it hard enough, that it would be true, right?
Yeah.
And so global warming is real. Climate change is exactly man-made. We need to sequester all the carbon, including each individual, and everything will be fine.
I can assure you that John is not watching.
I'm sure he's not. I'm sure he's not. Okay, let's see. Let's see. So someone's asking about. Says, "Good day, Doug.
We're gonna have to find some, genuinely evil person to interview. I think that'd be fun. And the world's so full of them, with the media and government. So we'll have to dig up somebody from those circles, well-known, bad actor that would like to, and be polite, but challenging.
And ideally somebody who is on a book tour, because those people...
They'll talk to anybody.
Exactly.
You're right.
So if you know anybody, as a viewer, anybody who fits this bill, who we could, was trying to promote a book, we can use that as kind of bait to get them on the podcast, and you can do your thing with them. That'd be quite entertaining.
Yeah. One thing I was going to, as a matter of fact, I may be able to solve this problem myself because, as I mentioned before, I have subscribed for years to two of the most left-wing collectivist statist publications in the world, the New York Review of Books and the London Book Review. Or is it the London Review of Books? I forget. But, they always have reviews of books, increasingly books that are only there because they're written by people of color or left-wing women or rabid socialists or something like that. But there's enough interesting stuff on science, and I like to know what the enemy's thinking anyway. I'll have to reach out to some of those people that I read appalling reviews on appalling books.
Yeah,
That might be fun.
that would be fun.
Okay.
I would definitely.
But if anybody's got any other thoughts,
Recommendations, yeah.
let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder when we talk to the, people that think they're the masters of the universe and either are invitees or want to be invitees to Davos, should I sport a white T-shirt as I am wearing right now? I've become partial to white T-shirts because they're retro to the 50s. And Marlon Brando and James Dean loved white T-shirts in their movies. And I think I'm trying to retro rock to those days.
I think you should stick with it.
Yeah, why
I like
not?
it.
So maybe I'll do that. They'll consider it to be kind of a subtle insult that I don't dress up in a coat and tie to talk to them.
No, but it's good. It sets the stage properly.
I think
if they
so.
feel a little insult at the beginning, but not enough. It's not so in their face they don't know if they should be defensive yet.
Exactly.
All right. So someone asked here. They want to thank you for sharing your experience and knowledge and wisdom. The question he has here is one that says, "What is the greatest truth that you have discovered for yourself?"
Maybe there are so many, but then maybe there are so few. I'm increasingly of the opinion, as I've said before, that this is all an illusion. And doesn't really amount to a hill of beans. Got to look at these things in relation to the cosmos. Here's an interesting fact, talking about what's important and what helps me put stuff in perspective. The universe is guesstimated to be about 13.5 billion years old. Okay? Well, that seems pretty old. The Earth was given birth to about 4.5 billion years old, and mankind 200 or 300,000 or whatever years old. So here's the question. This is a really good question. So, is the universe young or old? And the answer to that is it's but a pup, because it seems like the latest determinations that astrophysicists and mathematicians have come up with is that it's not going to last, because they were afraid that it was going to expand and then collapse and so forth. It appears that the universe itself is just a pup. The universe is going to last trillions of years, maybe millions of trillions of years. I mean, this is a long time. So what's happened so far is nothing in the universe to what's to come. I mean, it beggars science fiction. I mean, because I'm sure Biden's unaware of this, but a trillion is 1,000 times a billion.
It's a lot.
It's a
I
lot.
think they don't think of a trillion as a lot anymore.
This goes way beyond 2, 3, many time counting. So to me, that's important. It's that just don't sweat any of this. It's all completely meaningless. On the other hand, so that's not very helpful. Anyway, so we can go on to the next one.
Okay. All right. Can you explain more about your investments in carbon credits and the Carbon Streaming Corporation?
Yeah. There are a few, very few, newsletter writers, sources that I like to use for investments. And one of them is my old friend, Marin Katusa.
Smart.
Smart, academically smart, and just as important, street smart.
Yep.
And, as I indicated, anybody that hasn't read this thing I wrote on Wednesday on internationalman.com,
I'll link to it in the description.
yeah. And basically, what I do in that article is try to debunk carbon sequestration and carbon neutrality, and it's all carbon bullshit. It's a fraud. It's a hoax. It's a swindle. It's ridiculous. It's destructive and counterproductive. Hope I'm being clear. So how I feel about all this stuff. But that said, and Marin puts and Marin, bless his heart, kind of feels that way himself, to be honest. But he's never going to say that in public. He can spot a trend, and the trend is that carbon is an enemy. Carbon is the new plutonium. It's the new super sulfur. It's pick a nasty element. Carbon, the basis of all life on the planet, is it. So, all these corporations and now individuals are supposed to watch their carbon footprint and pay a tax based upon how much carbon they use. And it's all baloney, but it's a reality. And what Marin has done is he's put together a company, of which I'm a founding investor, called Carbon Streaming. And I've got a meaningful amount of money in that. So I totally disagree with what it's trying to accomplish, but I'm going to capitalize on it.
Well, isn't that the way you defined what a speculation is?
Exactly. It's value free. In other words, don't send your money out to do battle in a ridiculous frontal assault for moral principles, because it'll just get killed. Rather, get as much money as you can, both because it makes your life on this ball of dirt easier, generally speaking, and because it will allow you to counterattack against the forces of evil at some point when you've got lots more reserves because of all the money you've made with their game. So I don't do or say anything that I think is evil, but if I can ride a train that's going to Golconda, yeah, I'll hop aboard, even if I despise the other passengers on it, which in this case I generally do. So I think I have a lot better explanation in what I wrote on Wednesday, but that's basically it. And E.B. Tucker and Brett Heath, two very competent friends of mine, who founded Metalla and who founded Nova Royalty, both of which, I was a pre-public investor in, and both of which were like, 10 or 20 to 1 shots so far and are going higher. They're starting their third deal, which is going to come out in about a year, is also going to be a carbon sequestration bullshit type deal. And the institutions and then the public are going to lap it up. So that's the deal. So check out Carbon Streaming. It's trading at around, $275 Canadian. The only reason I bought it was because I think it's going to 10 times that number.
That's a good reason. Not that it should, but that it will. The should is irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I'm doing, kind of to balance the barbell, instead of having a 100-pound weight here and nothing on this side, I'm buying a lot of the dirtiest things I can think of, like coal companies and oil companies and other stuff that people hate, and institutions which are run by dress-wearing males and so forth these days. So I look really green putting money here, although I tell people I think it's bullshit, and I look really like a horrible human being putting money in these other things, and tell people why I'm doing that too. I think it's a great way to energy. The world runs on energy.
Right, and honestly, those oil companies and coal companies will likely be customers of the carbon streaming companies, right? So they'll have to buy the carbon offsets.
Absolutely will. In fact, there's a private placement that I'm very tempted to do in a little mining company. And so I was reading all this stuff about what they're drilling and all the rest of this type of thing. And then, I like the last couple of paragraphs, and the guy that's writing it, the chairman of the company, is a good guy, I know him. But he genuflects to this, saying, and let me point out that, we're trying to be good citizens and do ESG and I don't know, all these other things.
Yeah.
And it makes me hesitate a little bit because, I would prefer to say, and incidentally, we're well aware of ESG, but,
We're coal miners.
yeah, we think it's ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
I would have preferred if he'd ended his letter to the shareholders or whoever it was with "Let's go, Brandon."
It would have been better. Okay, so there's this guy from Uruguay, from Montevideo, and asked for your thoughts on Peronism in general, but also he asked the economists like Guillermo Moreno and Eduardo Curia. I don't know if you know those folks.
Yeah. Well, look. What kind of a question is that? What do I think of
Sorry to
Peronism?
set you up.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, Peron is probably there's a lot of competition in Argentina, but he may be the worst political force that's ever visited itself upon Argentina. I mean, he was a fan of Mussolini, overt, fan of Hitler, overt. I mean, he believed in the government controlling everything and doing all the horrible things that the government has done to Argentina since he emerged on the scene, 70 years ago, something like that. So there's absolutely nothing good about Peronism at all. And the economists that he mentioned, one of them is a guy who's running for office. I don't know him. What's his name?
Moreno, that one?
Which one of these
Sorry,
guys?
I'm gonna-
Millet? What's his name? I try not to keep.
Sorry, I scrolled past it. I can't
doesn't
find
matter.
it now.
Yeah, there's an Argentine guy who is making some waves talking to the descamisados, the shirtless ones. It's Argentine lower middle class.
Javier Milei.
Yeah, that's right. Basically explaining how the government is their enemy and the free market's their friend, and pretty sound altogether. And listen, maybe the trend can turn in Argentina. Anything's possible. As far as the market itself in Argentina, my guess is it's stocks, many of which are traded on the New York Stock Exchange, for what it's worth, probably at or near a bottom right now. So it's probably good speculations. Yeah, sure. I realize everything's cheap in Argentina right now, but the reason it's cheap and the reason why the country's standard of living has gone down for the last 70 years. It's really been going down since before that, but it's because of Peronist ideas.
No, how would you define those ideas as in comparing them with fascism or communism? Is it like where does that get sliced?
Well,
exactly?
they are fascism because the government in Argentina doesn't own a lot of industries. Actually, the way it works is the way Mussolini said it's supposed to work. Corporations own the assets and then pay a lot of taxes to the governments and employ the union workers and do as they're told. And the guys that run the companies to actually make them work as opposed to not work the way things did in pre-1980 China, or for that matter in the Soviet Union. It's much more intelligent. You have more assets to dispose of, so fascism makes a lot more sense than communism or socialism. A lot more. Communism is where theoretically the government owns everything. You own absolutely nothing because it's all from each according to his means and
To each according to his needs, yeah.
needs, right. Well, this is complete nonsense. Although people, claim to be communist, socialism says that the state owns the means of production, but, private consumer goods can be owned. Well, that was the Soviet Union, frankly. It was a socialist country. And, but fascism is a much more intelligent, stupid, but much more intelligent economic system where everything's privately owned and there's a stock market and so forth, but it's run by the puppet masters in government who get lots more resources in the form of taxes and because there's real wealth being produced, more power. So fascism is ruling the world today, economic fascism, everywhere, everywhere.
I mean, that's certainly what you see in China. It's certainly what you have in the U.S., right?
They're all the same. They're all just variations on the fascist theme. So.
Okay, so let's see. This guy here says, I have a book recommendation for you. It's by a guy named Anthony Sutton from the Hoover Institute. It's called Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. It documents the capitalist funding of the communist revolution out of New York. Doug has decried the communists in the past and supports a capitalist system, but it turns out that at the very top they finance everything and they don't care about these fake dialects. I would very much like to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, this is a big problem. It's that people that claim to be capitalists and people that are called capitalists are not, in fact, capitalists. They're fascists. In other words, they work with the state. They support the state. They think the state's a great idea because it, steals money and feeds it to them, and corporate earnings go up and their stock options go up. These people are not capitalists. This was the big problem the big mistake that Ayn Rand made. She said, businessmen are the heroes of the on and on. Businessmen are great people. Well, yeah, they can be, but, most of them don't have any philosophical tethers at all. So, they look like hypocrites, and they are. They're not capitalists. I mean, they're fascists. So don't confuse what capitalism is. I mean, look, there's a movement today called anarcho-capitalism to take the confusion out of this. Because capitalism in today's world is actually fascism. So, but if you say that you're an anarchist, doesn't believe in the state, well, people tend to confuse that with these 19th century guys with little round bombs with the lit fuse and all that. They think anarchists are destructive and basically socialists, which most of these European anarchists were, idiotically. So I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I don't believe in the right of the state to exist. I don't believe in the necessity of the state. It's that simple. Which, I can't, I do, but when I say this among businessmen, like later this afternoon, I'm going to be on a Zoom call with about 15 guys that these guys are kind of like the replacement for my Friday lunch group in Aspen, but they're the same people. Not exactly the same people because they're all over the world, quite frankly, but they're all really rich guys in business and, they're pretty smart guys in their 50s, 60s, or 70s. And, I can say I'm an anarcho-capitalist, and they roll their eyes. And I try to explain it, but they don't understand it. But they haven't kicked me out of the group yet because they find me amusing and bring up, and I don't care because I like to see what they're thinking. And
yeah. What do you think they don't understand? What do you think it is what are they missing that they don't understand about it? Do they think it's just like it's like an oddity, like it's an idea that doesn't even make any sense?
Yeah, they've lived their whole lives swimming in this cesspool of fascism, and they can't believe that there's actually a clear lake that they could jump in that would be much better. I mean, that's the analogy that I would draw. So, and they don't think economically. I mean, they're financially really smart. but they don't know anything about economics. And their, view of the way the world works centers with what the government does, politics. So, the situation's pretty hopeless, quite frankly.
But that's don't you feel like, I mean, all of these institutions are being identified as illegitimate or at least incompetent. They should be identified as illegitimate, I think, but they're all at least being clearly identified as incompetent and corrupt in what's happening now. And don't you think that there is a chance that people could grasp onto these ideas more now than ever, because it's going to be just proven to work? I mean, this whole system is.
Yeah, no, you're right, of course. Except they always think, we just need to get the right guys in office. I mean, get somebody up there that's smart and blah blah blah. Somebody that has a great shoe shine and a winning smile, and they just want to replace it with better people. We need better people. No,
Right.
We don't need better people.
Well, and this goes back to the idea about Putin earlier, where I was saying this guy's either, a fanboy or is, I guess, a stooge. Because I was like, anybody who's so effuses over a politician.
Maybe he's just asking an intellectually honest question, looking for an answer. I don't know.
No, it's his stuff in the Telegram where he was very much, he's like so pro Putin, it's crazy.
Is he
thousands of words he's written on it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In our little group, yeah.
Is he a Ruski or a...
No, his wife is Russian. He just recently relocated there, so he's got a lot of uninformed optimism, I think, about it.
Okay.
But he's he's excited about a new change in life, and that's cool. And I can see the upside, but like holding out anything on any politician, like holding out hope that they're gonna come to your defense or defend anything that matters to you, it seems like
it's a tragic error.
That's what that was my point.
Yeah.
Okay. Doug, what are your thoughts on Switzerland as a bolt hole for Western Europe regarding all the mass hysteria? He says, I'm interested because I live there, and with very little tax, through a flat tax, I can own as many guns as I want. It's beautiful nature, mountains with bunkers, and a lot of local farms. I'd love to hear your opinion as he's scaling his e-commerce business and turning 22. Congratulations. What do you think of Switzerland?
I'm a big fan of Switzerland. I lived there for a year when I was in college, and I've been back many times since then, been all over the country. And I think Switzerland's great. A little bit constipated, a little bit too conservative, but that's okay. Expensive, that's for sure. But, it's an excellent choice in Europe. Excellent choice. It's the most locally run by far of any country in Europe, or for that matter, most of the world, with the cantons, and even beyond the cantons, it's local beyond that. So, Switzerland's a real candidate, I think. And if I was going to pick a second country in Europe, I want to say Portugal, which I like a lot, although I find the language impossible. It's not that close to Spanish, unless you read it, but when you try to talk it, it's... I don't know, where else would I go in Europe?
What about like Serbia or Georgia or, more of the...
Yeah, that might, either one of those might be interesting, quite frankly. Yeah, that's right. Or Poland.
Poland, yeah.
I actually like Poland.
Hungary.
Impossible
to language, though.
Impossible. Totally different language group even. It's like learning Chinese, I think. Or the Baltics would be nice, but what's happening in Lithuania right now...
It's terrifying, really.
Makes you think it's like Australia light.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, where the hell do you go these days? I mean, I keep asking myself that question. I mean, listen, I've got nice digs in the U.S., which I consider kind of the tail of the skink, quite frankly. Got nice digs here. Tail of the skink. I can walk away from all this place. So is there some place that would be better to live in the whole world? Well, I wish somebody would identify it, because I'll take a look. Might have to rent a private plane to get there, but...
Yeah. Yeah, it's not obvious at this point. And I think it does seem what's happening does seem to be global in nature, and even in Russia, you see some of these things with COVID restrictions, and and the ramping up of some of these things there. Although
Yeah.
not as seriously as in Australia or Canada for sure.
Well, all these things inure to the benefit of the state and the people that control the state, and that's why. So no place is immune for that reason. People that control the state, hey, I'm a good guy, I need more control. And, of course, it makes sense.
Okay, Doug, how would you compare the current uranium bull market with the 2003 to 2007 version in terms of amplitude and duration?
Well, let's figure this out. I wrote a long article in my newsletter, because at that time I had a newsletter. And when did I write it? 1998, maybe, where I went into all kinds of stuff about why nuclear power got reality on its side, and the very few, by which I mean there were like a half a dozen or something like that, legitimate uranium companies out there, and the whole thing. It was like late 1998, and the uranium bull market, and at the time, uranium was like $10 a pound. That's what it was. And at the time, the average cost of mining and delivering yellow cake, which is, what is it? U308, I think, is the formula. It's an oxide of uranium. It's yellow. Comes in 55-gallon drums. Okay, the average cost of delivering those things was $20 a pound, and that was cash costs. So if you add in other things that were now called all-in sustaining costs, which is probably a better way to express these things, was higher. So it was obvious the price of uranium was going to go up, or the lights were going to go out. Well, it did. It subsequently ran, I can't remember the exact year, 2005, about. It ran up to $140 an ounce.
Wow.
And from a half a dozen, turned out that there were 500, more or less, uranium companies that were newly minted, exploring.
It's like cryptocurrencies.
Like cryptocurrencies, right, and they were all crap. Okay, and some of them just had wild rides. I mean, wild rides. Not just 10 to 1, 100 to 1, and more. And I happen to recommend one that I worked on with my friend Rick Rule, who, oddly enough, I was talking to yesterday for an hour on the phone. He lives in one of these bizarre little islands off the coast of Washington State called Paladin. And from its bottom, it went to $10, but it started out at 2 cents or something like
Holy
that.
cow.
That was a super score. You only need one of those if you have adequate size and you buy enough of it and you hold on. You hold on. That's the problem. You hold on. You only need one of those a decade, okay? So it was very, very good to me, and even better to Rick, I've got to say, because he had more of it than I did, that particular one. Anyway, so now we're back to how many uranium companies are out there. I don't know. The things that actually have a property that's worthwhile and management that aren't thieves and are competent, I'll say there's 3 dozen. Wild guess. So, and once again, right now, as we speak, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think spot uranium is about $40 a pound. But costs of mining, and once again, this is loosely defined, roughly $60 a pound.
Same setup.
Same setup, exactly. And in a way, it's better because people hated uranium stocks because they thought they weren't green, which is a lie.
People are coming around to it now. It seems like they're coming around.
Yeah, I think the reality always comes out, but the same people, have all the reasons that they hate it. So I think it's going to be explosive, uranium, and so I own a bunch of uranium stocks, and I'm looking for good private placements in others. Sometimes even marginally crap stocks, because when the wind blows, the turkeys fly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The rising tide lifting all boats.
Exactly. So the answer to the question is now is, I think, a very good time to buy uranium, even though, they've had a nice pop. They've had a very nice pop recently. They've gone up like, the group has probably gone up, I don't know, triple or quadruple, I don't know, something like that. It's pretty good. But these things are teeny weeny, and they're volatile, and, the ESG people, and they have some other initials that you're supposed to invest in. AIC people.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what that one is, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw some meme that one day the value of his personal Tesla stock went up more than the total value of the uranium complex.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that would be the case. maybe in an hour it might go up. So it's completely trivial. So the answer to the question is, yeah, hold on to your uranium stocks.
Okay. Someone from Colombia says, is the final decision about how to handle what's all the chaos that's happening in the world or coming in the world, that we either wait to see which countries are decidedly against authoritarianism and then move there, or do we just move to the countryside in whatever country we happen to be in? Mm-hmm. He said, that's how I'm seeing things play out. What do you think?
Yeah, it's tough to say because, here we are in quiet, backward Uruguay, which incidentally is going in the right direction.
Yep.
One indicator we just heard about the other day, I didn't know that, is that you were allowed until recently to own 3 guns. Now
you can own 8.
Step in the right direction.
Yeah.
On the other hand, in the next election, these Uruguayan voters could vote in a communist. I mean, they're totally capable of that. The last president before this one was, an ex-communist guerrilla who did all kinds of stupid things. But, okay, once again, you're back to where do you want to go? And it depends so much on how much personal capital you have. It's very helpful if you can speak the language or can learn the language if you have that gene in your brain to allow you to do it. Whether you have friends and connections there, whether you can reach out, or maybe you don't need any. You just want to live someplace where people don't bother you. It doesn't. So I don't know what the answer to that question is. What do you think?
Well, I think getting out of major population centers seems like it makes a lot of sense. I think absolutely. No matter what. Now, I just don't know if there's any country that's going to clearly step out as one that's against authoritarianism. It seems like they're all basically a flavor of it. Some are worse, as we're seeing with Australia. But then at the same time, I don't know how you describe Putin, if not as an authoritarian. I think he is that. And I think that you have, people were even talking about, we talked about Costa Rica before, and they started rolling out the Vax passport there, and then they pulled it back, apparently. That's the latest I heard. And, Nicaragua, it all depends upon the next election, as it does for a lot of Central and South American countries.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's hard to say that you're going to get the right answer just waiting around for the right thing to emerge somewhere.
I think waiting around for the right thing to emerge is, the clock is always ticking, so you don't want to wait around too long.
Yeah.
So you just start somewhere and start somewhere.
which is what you have to do. But you have to start. I think the biggest thing is because there's no perfect plan.
No.
People are waiting for something to emerge, and it's never going to emerge.
Yeah.
Because the future's uncertain.
I agree, but it does look. Well, I'm just confident, and I know you are too. We have actual Jacobins, the real thing, actual crazy Bolsheviks that control the U.S. apparatus of the state. And they're going to be there for another 3 years. Even if we have a revolution, they're going to be there for the next 3 years so the U.S. is going to be getting worse for the next 3 years.
Right.
Pretty much end of story.
Well, and there are things that it seems like they're so purposely destructive. So some things like last night at dinner we were talking about this. $450,000 are giving to anybody.
I still can't believe it was in the Wall Street Journal,
Wall Street Journal.
which better than the average newspaper.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's certainly sourced properly, so it's not like this is just some rumor. I mean, this is actually under current discussions where they can give $450,000 for anybody who was any migrant who was expelled from the country, any illegal migrant who was expelled from the country under Trump.
yeah, I would say instead of giving them $450,000, which is kind of like the offer, and I'm sure they're going to be looking for more, or their lawyers will take 40% of whatever they get will. I would say, hey, I've got something for you. If we catch you, we're going to, what are we going to do to you? Put you in jail. Well, nobody wants to go to jail, but, American jails are better than the living conditions that a lot of these people have.
Yeah.
So, gee, I don't know what you do. But if they actually do this, these morons, and actually give these people
Up to $1 million per family.
it's going to be, as they say, Katie, bar the doors. There's going to be streams of hundreds of thousands of people from all over the world. And how are you going to keep them out? Are you going to machine gun them? Well, you ought to defend your property rights, quite frankly. So I'd say nothing's off the table. Well, that's not very nice to say that. Well, all you have to do is tell them, hey, you don't have to go home. I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. Now, go away. And if they don't go away and start invading your property rights, you have to defend your property rights.
Yeah.
And not necessarily by rounding them up, which will be impossible with a human wave mob. I mean, you may have to shoot them.
But I think part of it seems to me that it's designed actually to make people increase tensions in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's just to make everyone who's suffering, Americans whose lives are like maybe they're forced to, out of their jobs because of vaccine mandates, or maybe they're just economically devastated because they're small business. But it's basically rub it in their face, and here's $1 million for this Honduran family because
I can't believe that people in the U.S. aren't actually out in the streets burning government buildings, knowing that they're planning on giving that kind of money, this is big money, to worthless vagrants. And in fact, worse than vagrants, because they're bringing their children with them, endangering their children, and then leaving them there. I mean, these people actually have criminal mentalities.
right. But
I'm sorry for the kids, but,
But what if the goal is to get people out in the streets and burning government buildings? I mean, because it seems so purposefully incendiary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it seems like it could be no other goal with it other than to just madden your population.
Yeah. Well, just like appointing this really crazy looking tranny as a 4-star admiral. It's just, it's one thing after another. I mean, this is like the Babylon Bee is in
Running out of
charge.
material.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I do think that this is designed to drive people crazy. I really do. And I think because again, if you have, it seems like what they've tried to gin up with, the stuff that with January 6th and these other things is this idea that there really is this serious threat of domestic extremism. And so it seems like they're trying. It only serves the state if that were true. Let's put it that way.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Anything can be an excuse for them to declare martial law. And unfortunately, a lot of the soldiers and a lot of the police will do what they're told because they don't want their rice bowls broken. They don't want to lose their jobs or whatever. So it's not good.
Well, I have to, and we were watching this thing the other day where the New York police and firemen we're protesting because of the vax mandate, and the initial thought you have when you see that is like, good, people are protesting it, but the thing is, like, isn't it? It's not that surprising that these people, I'm just trying to be nice about it, these people who basically they're willing to destroy people's businesses, enforce these bullshit laws on their population all day long, and then as soon as it shows up something doesn't go their way, they're out in the streets protesting it.
Yeah.
It's like, screw these guys. Do
Yeah.
not support them. They're not on your side.
No.
They did nothing while you're being abused as citizens. It's crazy. So people make me crazy. All right. So let's see here.
I'm just glad to be watching this on my widescreen, not out my front window at this point.
I have to say, my stress about all this stuff is down. It's like falling off a cliff. Like I'm not, like it's almost like I don't even, it's, by not being there, it's reduced the stress dramatically.
Oh.
So, and of course, there's, no matter where you go, there are problems, but it's this boiling pot, this pressure cooker that seems like it's being engineered in the U.S. is just it's gonna blow. It's gonna cause trouble. It's gonna be bad for everybody.
It's going to blow. I think it's going to blow, yeah.
And you should never participate in any of it. If you're watching this, you don't want anything to do with it. You want to get as far away from it as possible. You don't want anything to do with anything like that.
There's nothing you can do to make things better as part of a mob.
No.
I mean, you can just get yourself in the same kind of pickle that
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Exactly.
Yep. Person defending himself, and this is what happened. So, all right. Someone asks, have you noticed the road rage that has intensified since the lockdowns? I said, I really noticed it in Vancouver, especially the tailgating. We're currently in our second residence in the Czech Republic, and the tailgating going on here is even worse. In fact, it's outright frightening to drive here now. It almost seems like mass psychosis due to the turbulent times is displaying itself in the streets.
That is a well-timed question because it's recently come to our attention through our friend Chris McIntosh.
Yeah. Who are we going to have on next week?
Yeah, that's right. Who writes one of the
it's one of the best.
One of the 3 or 4 letters that I always read. Anyway, Chris dredged this thing up. Is it called the...
Universe 25?
Yes, done by a scientist in the 60s named Calhoun, perhaps.
I can't recall, but...
I can't either. But basically, what he did was build a mouse utopia. Wonderful place, multiple level, smoking rooms and libraries and kitchens with unlimited food and extravagant bedrooms.
Safe and clean.
Safe and everything a mouse could want. And he put like 6 couples of mice or something like that and so they bred and bred and bred. And then over a period of time, the population got big. And then they started acting abnormal. And bottom line is there's some interesting quirks along the way, like the emergence of
the beautiful ones.
The beautiful ones, which Chris calls the Kardashians, who are hardly beautiful. But, and this experiment was repeated numerous times, and every time the population went not just back to the original 6, went to 0.
Total colony collapse.
Total. So, people are different from mice. But, on the other hand, people are all moving into cities and they're all being fed by the government. So, anything's possible. And there were movies, these experiments were done in the 60s, and there were movies that came out, like Soylent Green was one of them, talking about the total and absolute collapse of civilization. And then sometime after that, I love those Snake Plissken movies,
Yeah.
Escape from New York, Escape from LA. Yeah, it all makes sense.
It does. And I think the thing that has the rat experiment having to do with road rage is that, there was sudden and arbitrary violence that would occur within these rat colonies once the population started to get to a certain size, where, they would, eat their young, they would, just lash out at others, and they all stopped breeding. There's also a weird quirk of it too. And yeah, the whole thing collapsed. And you do see these weird, like the whole Karen movement, you know, the idea of a Karen seems like it's an example of this lashing out by members of society. So
Yeah, and you know, I've said in the past, or have observed that the UN, not a reliable source, but they hire some competent scientists that work for them, and they say that by the end of this century, the largest city in the world will be Lagos, Nigeria, at 180 million people or whatever. Second largest will be Kinshasa with 120 million. Third will be Dar es Salaam with, I don't know, 100 million or something like that. And these are reasonable projections based on trends. But then I thought about this and said, wait a minute. Those cities are never going to get that large because the fact is that Africa today lives on, it still doesn't produce anything. It doesn't produce anything but raw materials which foreigners come in and mine for them. And so are those cities really going to get that big? No, I think they're going to have colony collapse on their way to those kind of numbers, even in Africa. So, you know, demographics may not be, but, you know, this is just I'm fascinated to see where we're going to be wrong on this. Because I was just reading a promotion for a new newsletter by somebody that apparently is quite famous in talking head circles for financial commentary. I'd never heard of the guy, but I don't know. And he says, you think that the markets of the 80s, 90s, aughts, and recently have been great? The best is yet to come. He's talking, hey, maybe he's right.
I hope so. I hope so.
Anything, I can think of reasons why, yeah, he could be right. But I'd say it's actually a pretty stupid prediction. So more likely the markets are going to crash. But, you know, so who knows? I mean, people out there still think that. So, and I hope he's right, frankly, because, you know, if the markets crash, yeah, I like good times more than bad times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, keep printing those dollars, Federal Reserve.
Well, so let me just, we've gone over an hour, so let me just ask you one last question to wrap up. You forwarded me an email about this before, earlier this week. But someone asked your thoughts on Gerald Celente's Universal Church of Freedom, Peace and Justice.
I like Gerald. His heart's in the right place. He's trying to do the right thing. Nothing wrong with forming another church. I mean, you know, let 100 flowers bloom. I mean, it's fine. But I don't think that's going to cut it. I don't.
Well, religious freedoms were not protected during all the COVID hysteria. So,
No, they weren't.
So it doesn't seem like that special exemption is going to do you much good.
No, and in Europe, Christianity is a dead duck. Absolutely a dead duck, and it's a dying duck here in the U.S. So.
Except for in Russia. This is one thing Russia is going for it in terms of, like, a lot of people are being drawn to Russia because they're Christian Orthodox. And you know they've tried to draw some lines around that there, at least to keep that flourishing.
That's true. I mean, what's approved and what is not approved, it's pretty well separated. And yeah, unlike here in the U.S., where, you know. So listen, I wish Gerald well on that, but I don't think it's going to cut it.
No. I support anything that guy's doing, and I think it helps. I think it's good to see someone resisting stuff, and he has the energy and the appetite to take on those kind of lost causes. I think, but I hate to say lost causes, but they probably are.
Probably are.
But Gerald, we do love you, so we'd love to have you on the show again sometime.
Exactly.
All right, let's see. I guess we'll just leave it there because we're going a little long, but we have lots more questions we can do next week as well.
Okay, and we're going to try to talk to
Chris McIntosh next week.
Chris McIntosh. Yep. That'll be interesting to talk about things that are really, really cheap in the world where you can make some money. And maybe we're going to be able to talk about this stock, which is, I've got a we,
Yeah,
bo-
that one.
we both got a big position in it, frankly, but, you know, it might be promoted or it might be a disaster. I don't know. It would be interesting to
Yeah.
talk about that, but that's gonna be,
That'll be next week. We'll be
Yeah.
able to do that next week,
yeah.
from what I understand. So, in any case, well, thank you very much, Doug. And thank you, viewers, for watching. Leave comments below. Follow us on
Okay.
Telegram, and we'll
Thanks,
talk to you
Matt.
next time.
And I hope that the mama poodle and her sister weren't too distracting for watchers.
I don't know. Usually, I think the dogs make us look better, to be honest. So,
Hey, look
Everyone
what it's-
loves dogs.
Look what it's done for Jeff Berwick. People want to hear what Lucy says.
exactly. And see how mad people got at Fauci for his torturing of the dogs, or his funding of the torturing of
Funny,
dogs.
torturing. I'm sure he would have been happy to do it personally
Himself.
if he'd been there, but
It's just going to Tunisia was just too inconvenient for him.
Yeah.
So he had to hire off the torture
yeah,
to someone else.
exactly.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you
Okay,
very much.
great. Thanks, Matt.